Hello, and welcome to episode yada yada for, or as I call it, the this week in entertainment with Hayden and Bryan, aka Downstage, where we just talk about this week's entertainment news and whatnot. So yeah, it definitely was a very slow week in terms of entertainment, but there were a couple of good stories we do want to talk about in terms of not only entertainment news, but also just entertainment industry in general, especially with the. One, before we get into our first story, Hayden, how was your week?
It was all right. Nothing crazy, just same old, same old.
Yeah. I did two things. One, on Friday, I went. Well, not Friday. On Thursday, my brother and I went to go see Ghostbusters Afterlife, which was pretty good for the most part. They were mini review. Go see it. I will say that. Yeah, go see it. Personally, there are a lot of things that probably don't add up because of as a screen well, not as a screenwriter, but as someone who has been trying to make a, who has been studying has been studying films and theater for the past half of the decade or something like that, more than a decade, I should say. Um, there's a lot of things that you kind of notice that when you're watching, is like that kind of doesn't add up, but because of maybe timing and pacing issues, they kind of like delete it from the thing. But yeah, overall, it was a very good movie. You should go see it. It definitely had the heart and charm of the first Ghostbusters, especially since they're pining for the nostalgic tones of the first movie. Uh, since they that is essentially the heart of the well, one, there's a more than just a nostalgic charm, but also there is a heart in the movie too. The cast was great, especially McKenna Grace as Phoebe Spengler. I mean, aside from maybe casting Finn Wolfhard as her brother, who I feel like did an okay job, is just that 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 was like a role or character that they could easily have exercised from the movie, alt right, and just like gotten correctly. Because honestly, if it was just about her mother and if it was just about Phoebe and her mother, it would probably be a very good movie. It would probably be a better movie. But it's like the brother really didn't add in that much anything aside from them wanting a Peter Venkman like character to you know to bring the whole notion of, oh, this is a Peter Venkman type of character. If she's Egon, then she's and then he's easily Venkman. And you kind of notice that throughout the film that there are like character beats and moments of that actually just links back to the first movie. But again, it's still a very good movie to watch. I had fun with it. I laughed. I cried. It's one of those type of movies where you kind of like go, I understand where they're going with it, and I understand the type of emotions that they were doing in it. And yeah, I do agree. It was a very good movie. And again, not without its fault, but still. Uh,
And also, Paul Rudd is in it, so if you need any motivation to go see it.
Oh, sure, Paul Rudd is in it too. You can't, if it's David Harbour, sure, but if it's Paul Rudd,
Well, I mean, it is Paul Rudd after all. I mean, the dude is literally immortal, and he is honestly good in everything he does as well. So, I mean,
yeah, that's another thing. It's like Paul. It's like if it was another character actor in the movies, like say, I don't know, like a Bradley Cooper or like because the character is supposed to be like this very apathetic science teacher who obviously knows what he's talking about and all that stuff. So if you cast someone like say Bradley Cooper or not Paul Rudd, but like Aaron Eckhart or obviously someone who is like in that middle ground of being like in his 40s but still not really reached 50, so to speak, like that sort of age range. But then Paul Rudd comes up and it's like he's sort of like acting like the hip science teacher you kind of know and love, but still is like very apathetic too. So that that kind of like brings a kind of like balance to everything.
yeah.
So yeah, it definitely felt like Paul Rudd did add a lot of charm to the character, even if the character was kind of like very character again. the character itself is like it kind of like harkens back to other characters of past Ghostbusters movies. So yeah, but yeah, short review. Go see it if you can. Well, of course you can. But seeing it in theaters, I enjoyed the hell out of it. It definitely was one of those type of movies where you made you smile and also made you cry. So yeah. And then after that, I went to see Survivor Series on Sunday. So that was actually a fun day out with my brother and my father. So yeah. So yeah, that was my week. Or weekend, I should say. I went to go see the movies with my brother, and I ended the weekend with wrestling with my father and my brother. So yeah. So
I'm trying to catch a fly in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in case I haven't seen my hands just darting across the camera randomly.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Even though this side note, winter, fall, what have you, all the mosquitoes that were like out in the summer and stuff like that too are trying to keep themselves alive somehow, because I have a mosquito in this room somewhere. I have no idea where it is. It keeps hiding itself somewhere, and it's amazing how this mosquito has lasted as long as it did. But yeah, once fall ends and winter begins, like all these bugs that should have died over the summer just come out of the woodworks and just like have their like last hurrah. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're sort of, well, we know we're gonna die. Let's party until it happens. Like that's the mosquito mentality.
Yeah. Now, if it was a mosquito that happened to be carrying blood of some dinosaurs, then maybe I wouldn't hurt it. But anyway.
No, I would just squish it, no question. Nope, I'm not gonna take the risk that someone's gonna create like Jurassic Park. That always ends like disastrously. Every time.
What if you had the power of God in your hands and you went and it had, well, not God, but if you had the power, well, actually, technically speaking, actually yes,
let's stick with that God analogy. Let's stick with it.
Yeah,
it is essentially like a power.
That was the whole thing with Jeff Goldblum too, is that Dr. Malcolm was basically telling everybody that they had the analogy of that you basically had the God analogy, where it's like they had the power of God in their hands and they were playing with God, playing God in the sense of playing God. And as you said, Jurassic Park ends up being Jurassic Park, but again, that's because the people who were in business were only caring about as a business as opposed to an actual park. So, but anyway.
Yeah, it's like, here's actually an analogy from when I was rewatching Fellowship of the Ring last night, when Frodo offers the Ring of Power to Aragorn kind of near the end of the movie because he doesn't want to carry that burden. He's kind of testing to see if Aragorn is corrupted by the power or not. And you see Aragorn approaching the ring, you hear that voice talking to him, and he doesn't take the ring. He just closes Frodo's fist because he realizes how corrupting and dangerous that power of a god would be for him. And he has the foresight to know that this would be dangerous. I shouldn't take this power.
Yeah.
So that's that would be my thing. If it's like, I see a mosquito and it has the genetic genes or whatever of a dinosaur, squish it anyway. Not gonna not gonna let that power possibly,
Of course, and then maybe that mosquito bite that ends up biting you, and somehow it has the DNA of a spider. So
no, I mean it's a mosquito. So I turned to Mosquito Man,
which is an actual movie, by the way.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it's a sci-fi movie back in the day, maybe made in in the either the 2010s or the 2000s, probably between the 2005 and 2010. But there was a sci-fi movie that came out called Mosquito Man, and it is exactly how it sounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But yeah.
Da, 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 da. Mosquito Man does whatever a mosquito can. Flies around, sucks up blood. That's just what a mosquito can do. Da da. It's the Mosquito Man.
It's amazing if that thing. It's amazing how that part wouldn't be. If this gets on YouTube without any faults, because Hayden just singing the Spider-Man song without singing the Spider-Man song, and if this part actually was not edited out or aired out with just like blank air, I'll be amazed. But anyway, yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home is coming out in a month or so. So yeah, we're kind of like a little. I'm a little excited for No Way Home, but I'm still in like a very what's the term? I'm kind of like in the I have low expectations.
You're in the middle category, I guess, or
yeah, I have low expectations because I know it's gonna be good, but at the same time, I just don't want to be like big expectations. But anyway, so
understandable, and that's fair.
So back into the week of entertainment, a few stories came out. One, so if you are a Spotify user, if you go to your Spotify account and you go in like to, I would say probably a random album, and you wanted to shuffle it, you cannot shuffle your songs anymore. So apparently, Adele's new album 30 came out, and one of the things that she said was she doesn't want people to skip her songs, meaning like she wants her to like actually listen to these songs and without essentially skipping each of the songs. So I don't know if I could do that on the web app, like the web version of Spotify, but it may or may not be possible. I'm not sure, but I know if you have the app, like on the phone and whatnot, like that, you could still skip. I mean, not skip. You could still shuffle the songs. But yeah, and Spotify ended up essentially agreeing with Adele and took away, or at least hidden, the option to shuffle songs. So one, that's a big power move from a mega superstar singer like Adele, because one, it shows that it doesn't matter who it could be in terms of like presenter wise, entertainer wise, if you ask a company or something like that to essentially say, hey, I have a new album out. I don't want to have people shuffle the songs. Can it be possible to play like track lists, or just like in the order as it's released, i.e., track 1, track 2, track 3, etc. So, from your standpoint, Hayden, what do you think? Was it a good move? Because you said you're kind of like confused on why Spotify does it, but I think it's a good point, because not only does Spotify get more people to go, oh, Spotify's treating might be testing out a new model for their like future releases and whatnot, especially if they have people say like a Harry Styles who puts out his new album like in the next few months, and he wants the album to be like the same thing, where it's just like you play it as you can't really skip the album. You have to listen to it track by track or track by track. So yeah, I understand like why it could be like a little confusing, but I do think maybe in a business standpoint, it is good, because not only does Spotify get more people to come to, is like, oh, Spotify may be adapting to the change of the times, whereas it's like shuffle option when I was playing, when I was listening to Spotify, it is kind of like weird to go, was like I have this like a little quay of songs, but when I hit play, it might go into the next song that I don't want to go into the next song. So it's like a little odd to go up all that stuff, and hit this next song, and then as you're done with that song, it immediately shuffles to the next song. So it's shuffle music. It's fun, but at the same time, it's only fun when it's like a party mix or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And here's the question: like, do they take it away just for her album, or is this just all aboard for everything, like on everyone else's albums, on just those playlists that you see that someone made of a bunch of random songs all compiled together from a bunch of artists?
I think they might be. Give me a second.
Because the reason why is like if they remove the shuffle option for everything, I think it's a little too drastic. Because like you're saying too, it's like it's great for like parties and you just find some random playlist of a bunch of random songs that seem cool and you just kind of put it on shuffle, just kind of keep it interesting.
No, apparently they took out the shuffle, like the shuffle option, like altogether. So yeah. Now from a business standpoint, yeah, that seems odd, especially when you're a music platform like Spotify and and you want to like skip to a new song, especially if it's like a party or something like that. Especially us theater kids, theater kids parties really love the party and all that stuff. But yeah, and the party mix really doesn't really shuffle all that stuff, and you have to do everything by hand. But yeah, I do agree. It's like it is confusing, but at the same time, from a business standpoint, it is pretty sound because
it's certainly a bold move.
Yeah, it's a bold move because it's like not only does it allow people to go, oh, Spotify is actually, thinking of new strategies to figure out, just like literally new strategies to figure out what type of. Just like new strategies to figure out in terms of music platforms and whatnot, because aside from Spotify, there's like Apple Music, there is Google.
YouTube, I think, has something like that.
YouTube, like YouTube Music. Like Google probably
Google has something. I think even Amazon has something too.
Yeah, Amazon Music, but Spotify is like the most of the biggest one because that's how many people. That's like the most listened platform because
it's the most well known, it's the most used.
Yeah,
for sure.
If this was like 10 years ago, like Spotify probably wouldn't be. It'd probably be like iHeartRadio, and like even before that, like iHeartRadio was literally just like ads and stuff like that too. If Adele tells. Or if someone like Adele or Harry Styles or even like a Taylor Swift tells Spotify to like, oh, I don't want no ads on my on my album, that'd probably be a huge thing because
I think if they're saying no ads, like that's something that they definitely wouldn't be able to actually do because that ad revenue also pays Spotify in Spotify as well. So.
No, but I'm just
removing a shuffle button. It doesn't directly affect bottom line as much as like getting rid of the ad revenue that they get generated through theirs.
I was just saying that hypothetically. It's like if they told them to like remove ads on their album, so like that they probably wouldn't be able to do that. But at the same time, it's sort of like it's definitely a bold move from Spotify, but at the same time, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like. Maybe they're doing this to get more people to listen to not only their app and whatnot, but it definitely feels like.
Well, I think that the point is being for like because Adele wants everyone to listen to every song on the album. That's fine, but not everyone is gonna like every single song on any artist album. There's always going to be at least one or two songs that will stick out as being super great. Then others will just kind of like be forgotten about because no artist is ever going to have that 100% perfect album of music. There's always going to be some that are remembered more than others, and there are going to be some that maybe you'll hear someone say once, you'll be like, what? No, that wasn't on that album. And then you just kind of go back later and like, oh, wow, that was in that album. Because not every song is going to resonate with you. Not every song is going to get your attention. So I think, like if I'm listening to a song and I'm like, oh, this is a kind of boring song. Oh, but I'm kind of stuck having to listen to it now.
Yeah.
Like at that point, I'd just be like, okay, well, I mean, because I have Apple Music, so I would just be like, okay, I'm just gonna go find the songs that I do like to listen to from this album, and then I'll just download those. so I can just listen to the ones that I want to listen to that resonate with me.
Yeah, I imagine for the most part, listening to albums, especially maybe now, could be like between maybe 2-3 minute songs, give or take. But if it's like a song that's like maybe 5-6 minutes, and you do want to skip to the next song, but you really can't, it definitely feels like not only is Adele like playing to a power, it is definitely a bold move from her to essentially see if Spotify blinks, and it's like, oh, and apparently they blinked. So yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a bold move from both Adele and Spotify, but it definitely does see like maybe they want people to hear more than just music, and just like instead of just like listening to say Michael Jackson's Bad, and then they was like, oh, let me listen to the first song and then hit shuffle again. It just goes right into the next song instead of like going into the first, second, and third tracks, so forth and so on. It's like you said, shuffle music is like made for like parties and stuff like that too, especially if it's like a diverse playlist of music. But you don't want to listen to that song, like those songs, like back to back to back. It's made to be like shuffled apart.
Exactly.
Believe me, I worked in a restaurant, and a lot of the restaurant musics, if it was playing, back to back to back, it'd probably be like annoying songs like back to back to back. But if you have it on shuffle mode, then you probably get like a diverse standpoint of like what type of music you could be listening to while you're eating and stuff like that too. But yeah, it definitely feels like it's a bold move from both Adele and Spotify, both from a marketing and business point.
Especially because it's like, to my knowledge, I don't know if Spotify has ever done what some like a music creator has done. When the music creator asks for something like that, I don't think they've ever kind of said, okay, we'll do what you ask. Like, this seems like a first.
Oh yeah.
Like you're saying, they blinked and then.
Yeah.
Or before they weren't.
Yeah.
If anyone would have asked them for.
The only times I've heard about this stuff, it will probably like maybe Apple Music and having artists like maybe silver Apple Music for the amount of money they get, like revenues or something like that. Especially if the songs were like 99 cents and stuff like that too. So like they wouldn't be getting the amount of money. Yeah, that sort of thing too. But yeah, it definitely is a bold move from both Adele and Spotify, especially from a marketing and business standpoint. Because marketing, you get more people to come onto your platform and listen to it, and also from a business standpoint, it may also get people to buy stock more into Spotify, because Spotify shows that they are listening to newer strategies, and people might want to invest in Spotify. So in the next, like say, few years, if Spotify has a nice rise in the stocks and whatnot, people will be like, oh, I could cash out, be very rich from Spotify music that not Spotify music, Spotify stocks that I invested in. Anyway, yeah. That's what happened with Spotify over the past week. Now, again, going into film talk. So, our boy Ridley Scott is kind of upset. And he's upset on two fronts. One, he's upset that us millennials did not go and support his latest film, well, one of his latest films, The Last Duel, in theaters. So he's kind of he's mad that us millennials are always on our phones and like literally always on their phones and not caring about the type of movies that are coming out, which is, to be fair, I am on my phone like 85% of the time. So, and I am, even if I'm watching something, I'm like usually on my phone anyway. So, to be fair,
we didn't see his movie. But when you needed to fix the pacing and kept repeated scenes out when they were just simply repeated for no reason.
But he, but yeah, there's two things that came up. One was him mad about the last Duel bombing, and the other thing was his what was this? His quotes on superhero movies. And before getting to yeah, so he says that the reason why he doesn't like superhero movies now is because they're boring, because the screenplays are the issue. And yeah, he says a lot of it has to do with the screenplays to a lot of these superhero movies, which I do agree. There is a problem with some of the superhero movies that are very formulaic by the numbers, but I don't agree with us millennials being a problem because of the last Duel bombing. So
yeah, like a superhero movie is not the reason your film bombed. Like,
no.
Like there are plenty of movies we see that don't base anything around superhero or stuff like that, and they still do really good. It's not because they're, like it doesn't have to do with them being superhero movies or not. It has to do with the quality of the movie. And Last Duel does have an interesting story and interesting, ideas and concepts it talks about. The problem is it's a very long movie.
Yeah, it's
and
2.5
it spends
hours.
too much time when it could be getting to the point sooner and cutting out needless scenes that are simply just repeating the same exact things that we, the audience, already know.
Now, here's what I wrote on Twitter. I essentially said that Ridley, the reason why people probably didn't want to go to see The Last Duel was because you casted Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in a 2.5 hour movie. Now, when I think of,
although I will say he did a good job of hiding Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah,
because like I didn't find out about it until you told me about him being in it.
Yeah, but if I'm doing a 2.5 hour epic movie, and it's basically about a duel,
and also French people who apparently are speaking British accents, like every French person is speaking a British accent.
Which that's always going to be the case, especially if like
come to France, we're secretly British apparently.
What is it? I was watching gameplay for the new the new Call of Duty game, and they're talking in Russian. They're supposed to be Russian. They're supposed to be Russian characters, supposed to be speaking Russian, but they're talking with those like the Russian American accents you always hear.
Yeah.
So it's odd not to hear people in full Russian be talking in Russian, and then you just be talking like those stereotypical Russian accents you hear, American actors do. That's like duh and and all that stuff. Like same thing with the Germans too. So it's like I understand that suspension of disbelief, but at the same time, why are they British? Like if it's supposed to be in France.
Also, wasn't it based on real events too?
Yes.
So I would assume they're probably not actually British in a French court.
I don't know. Getting historical accuracy is like, it's hard. Even from a.
But again, it's like you have the time and resources, just a little accent training.
Yeah.
It can go like a long way.
Yeah, especially when, Adam Driver, I'm pretty sure he'd probably be able to put like the time and effort to do a French accent.
Yeah, like he's a phenomenal actor. Give him some time to learn a French accent, he'll crush it.
Yeah, but I understand if they wanted to do like the English accent and all that stuff. So yeah, but yeah, I do agree that. Okay, well, I agree with the superhero comment, but I don't agree with us millennials being the problem. And I think the problem was that it wasn't the millennials that were the problem. It was essentially who was it? 20th Century Studios, or 20th Century Studios who distributioned The Last Duel. They didn't do any that type of marketing. Like literally,
like it was. Yeah, they barely gave it any good marketing at all.
And
like the only full trailer, like I saw like a full trailer kind of when it was just like popped up on like a YouTube as a YouTube ad in the middle of something else I was watching, and I usually just skip those anyway because it didn't grab my attention enough for me to actually watch the trailer. So I just hit skip on the ad and just kept going with the video I was actually watching. And then some of the ads I would see pop up on TV, I'm like, I would like they were just generic. They weren't actually that interesting. Like nothing actually grabs your attention enough to like actually get me motivated to actually want to go see this.
And again, it's also a 2.5 hour movie. It's like the last
and as I heard someone else say when they were reviewing it, you feel every minute of it. And it's like there's some movies you don't feel that at all because you're actually enjoying the movie, but this one is like no, you feel the passing of time when you're watching that movie.
I mean, but not only was this done with horrible marketing, like, or at least minute marketing, you had other movies coming out at the same time, and like it comes out in the middle of October, and at the start of October you had The Many Saints in Newark, you had The Addams Family 2, you had Venom 2.
Halloween Kills was coming out, I think, either just before or just after.
Yeah,
I think.
Just before, like literally on the same day too. And the previous week before that was No Time to Die.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following week you had Doom. And then
that movie was honestly doomed from like it was doomed when they decided to put it in the middle of every other movie going on at basically the same time.
Now, if this was
and it's clear all the marketing got put into all the other movies too.
Yeah, especially since 20th Century Studios, oddly enough, to use the word, shuffles around their movie list a lot, especially because of the pandemic. Like, just in a month or so, the Kingsman. Yeah, that's what it's called, the Kingsman, the Kingsman.
Yeah, it's Kingsman because it's because it's like the prequel to the Kingsmen group.
Although I did like they was gonna be called the Kingsmen, like some sort of like prequel title, but I forgot what it was called. But yeah, the Kingsman, which got shuffled around a lot, especially because of not only the pandemic, but it was just getting shuffled a lot. So I was just surprised it actually got released. But
wait, that movie actually did get released?
Yeah, it's getting released in the next month or so.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
It's like they are so terrible with their marketing, and with the shuffling around. I'm like, I don't even know when they're releasing anything.
The Kingsman, sorry. It's getting released. What is it? Maybe 2 days before Christmas, or right before the Christmas thing. So.
Oh, that's also that's bad timing too, though, because Spider-Man's still gonna be pretty fresh.
Yeah, what is it? I think it's either coming out on the December 22nd or the 23rd, or around that area.
Like they do not know when to actually release movies at good times. Clearly,
look, Fox in the past is definitely. It's okay. So the Kingsman is actually being released on the same day as The Matrix Resurrections and Sing 2. And not only that, the previous week you had No Way Home and Nightmare Alley being released as well. On top of that, you have West Side Story. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, there used to be a time where studios knew when to release movies, and there would be times where studios knew when to release movies as a way to, in the dump months, the dump months, as people will call them now, which is essentially late August to. I mean, it starts with technically speaking, a dump month is like August, September, October-ish,
like very early October, but like like a couple weeks before Halloween.
Yeah, and then after like a couple weeks before or after Halloween, November, December, and a little bit in January is basically award season, Prime month, so people could get like all these award movies, like award like Oscar, bait movies and stuff like that too.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, I wouldn't be surprised, and another thing, the reason why probably it probably bombed for the most part was not only was it a lack of marketing, and it was it was a lack of marketing. It was a lack of the studio time. It just didn't look like really interesting. Like I understand a movie about a duel. It was essentially the last recorded duel in history over essentially a rape accusation. So
funny enough, that duel is kind of actually it's overshadowing the real message of the film.
Yeah.
Whereas like because even the trailers make it seem like this woman is just kind of like very suspicious, so you can't trust her. But it's like no, actually she's probably the most trustworthy person because especially the way the film is formatted, we see it from Matt Damon's character's perspective, then we see it through Adam Driver's character's perspective, then we see it through, and I'm blanking on the actress's name, but we see it through her character's perspective.
Yeah,
Jodie Comer. Yeah, and her character is the most accurate of, I would say, of what essentially happens, because it feels more. It just feels more believable, especially because it's like in those times too, especially when it's like you're a woman, and then it's like they just assume that because of their twisted views of like how that stuff kind of works, that because she became pregnant from that rape, and then it's like, oh well, you clearly must have loved this dude, and it's like, no, that's not how it works, but these twisted times kind of make it seem like that. And it really did, and it really does also have a lot of like relevancy in modern day when certain laws are passed in certain states. So it's so funny enough, because they pushed so hard on the fact that this is one big duel, they actually undercut themselves, because now there's actually this pretty important message the movie is trying to say.
Yeah.
But you marketed it so terribly that no one's gonna really probably even go and see it, or they're gonna go in thinking this is only about a duel, when no, there's actually a lot more going on.
And not only that, Ridley Scott is known to make very gritty R-rated movies, and The Last Duel is a very hard R movie because, from what I've heard, there is a lot of gore in that movie, or a lot of violence for the most part. And
and they also and not only that, but they also show the rape happening too. Because there's some movies where it's like they'll not necessarily show it, they'll cut away from it just and kind of right before, so we kind of have so that we the audience kind of have the idea of what's happening without having to actually see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but again, because it's like it is Ridley Scott, we see it all happen.
Yeah. Now, is Millennials the Problem the reason why this movie bombed? No. Is Ridley Scott just saying that because he just needed a way to vent his frustrations? Obviously.
Yeah, it's clear he's just pissy about it, and it's like, that happens. But like, don't try to blame Millennials for for first off terrible marketing, and like pick a better studio next time, dude.
First off, Millennials have way more big problems than just like going to see a movie. So
like, yeah, exactly.
And I say that as a millennial, sadly enough. Even though I was born. Anyway, now his other comment was about superhero movies and how superhero movies are essentially boring because of the script. And he mentioned that he made 3 superhero movies in his time, which was Alien, Blade Runner, and Gladiator.
Those aren't superhero movies, though.
Technically speaking, they are superhero movies because you got Ripley, who is her own like type of superhero because
but there's the thing. Alien is sci-fi. Blade Runner can also be argued as sci-fi, and Gladiator is it's kind of like it's set in ancient times. Not necessarily saying it's historically representative accurate, but it's still kind of like a fictional times piece kind of.
Well, yeah, but
so I wouldn't necessarily qualify those movies as actually superhero movies. I think Ridley's kind of going for a stretch with that one.
Well, that is true. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why. I mean,
like just because they are technically the hero characters, but there's nothing about them that I would essentially qualify as super per se. Like for instance, you watch a sci-fi movie, they're technically not superheroes, they're just people who live in a sci-fi universe. So this is just day-to-day stuff.
that is
Like
true.
that's
Yeah.
the thing about like superhero movies is that you have a perceived normality and then we have something that is very uniquely different. Because
Okay.
aliens in a sci-fi movie is a norm. It's only abnormal in the context of the movie because the crew did not expect that to happen.
Okay. Apparently, and this is and I'm reading from the New York Post because they kind of like as much as I don't like the New York Post, they kind of like give it a condensed version of what he talks about. But he basically says that the scripts are not the scripts aren't effing good. I'll narrow down to this. As always, the best films are driven by the characters, and we'll come to superheroes after this if you want. But because I'll crush it, I'll effing crush it. They're so effing boring as shit. And he went to list his own movies as examples as great scripted superhero movies, despite the movies Alien, Gladiator, Blade Runner obviously not fitting into the genre. And apparently, this is the reason why he says they are superhero movies. They are superhero movies. So why don't the superhero movies have better stories? Sorry, I go off the rails, but come on. They're mostly saved by special effects, and they become boring for people who for everyone who works for special effects because they got the money. Harrison
Um,
Ford was a superhero, was one superhero, but everyone was confused when he got the shit beat out of him by the other superhero who we thought was the bad guy. Now I think he's just saying superhero in the sense of they're the hero,
mhm.
but they are the superhero, whereas like nothing really could phase them. So I
I don't think he even understands what superhero actually means if he's calling his characters superheroes. Because they're not. They're just the heroes. That's just simply what they are in the simplistic of terms. They're just simply the heroes of the story. But there's nothing about them that is inherently super.
well
There's
yeah
nothing to suggest that in any
now
conceivable way. Even like, and again, I do agree with character-driven stories. They're great. That's a great way to do it. But the problem is you had it and then you lost it, Ridley. You had it with the character driven and then you went too far and then it seemed like you were almost kind of going off on one of those like drunken tirades. I'm assuming he probably wasn't drinking, but the way he went up, the way he leaped into logic like that is what I would expect from someone drinking.
honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if Ridley, had a couple of Chantenays or something like that right before the interviews. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
again, a lot of like Ridley Scott has like another movie that's already being released about called House of Gucci about uh, what was it
I think it was like was it the assassination of the what's his name guy the um
no it's
wait am I thinking or am I thinking of oh no wait I think I'm thinking of the Versace story.
yeah Versace. You think of
Yeah, because there was like a series they did like I think it was FX that did a series about Versace like a couple
Yeah,
years
it
ago.
was about it was about Donatello Versace's uh what's it called crap, I know what you're talking about because it was American Crime Story, the assassination of Versace, but it was about Versace and this is about Gucci, so yeah,
Mhm.
I can understand the similarities, but yeah, uh, I do agree that there are superhero movies that are very lackluster in terms of dated special effects or just driven by the special effects.
Mhm.
Uh,
Like for instance, I watched the Dune trailer, and I was like, okay, this just looks like a movie where it is going to be driven more by the special effects, which do look great, but I feel like the acting is going to possibly suffer in this.
yeah, because
And lo and behold, that actually is kind of true. The acting was subpar. It could have been better.
Yeah, and you get like a great cast like Jason Momoa, Isaac,
Rebecca Ferguson, Zendaya, Timothy
Timothy.
Chalamet, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah, he has a joke about how people pronounce his name and how he knows how to pronounce his name. So it's like the same thing with Seashore Ryan, Seashore Ronan, and how she pronounces her name. So it's like one of those type of things. But yeah, you have a great cast and stuff like that too, and then you have to, and then the most of the cast has to work with the idea of, oh, by the way, you're talking to a giant right in front of you, so it's like, and then in actuality, it's just some guy with a green suit, just like holding a stick like this to make it look like you're a giant.
Yeah.
It's there's a great behind the scenes video of Beauty and the Beast from a few years ago showing how Dan Stevens and Emma Watson acted together. And you just see Dan Stevens just like literally in this big suit of foam or whatever, walking down this thing, and you have to imagine Dan Stevens, acting with Emma Watson for like half of a day or something like that, dressless like this, and the same thing with Paul Bettany in WandaVision, where he was in his like signature like purple type of thing. He was like literally in green or something like that, like a green face and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, and he had like these like weird things to cover his ears.
And you have to imagine he's talking to Elizabeth Olsen for like half a day or whatnot, looking like that, and she has to visit him like as Vision, as like with this purple face and whatnot. And here he is, like looking like literally like the Wicked Witch. So.
Or also another great example. Look at how they did Thanos with Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Like you just see this kind of suit and the stick thing with the Thanos head that's above his.
Yeah, it's like I do understand like a lot of these superhero movies aren't really driven well because they are a selling point with the special effects nowadays. But there are superhero movies that are going to be driven by the story, or the character driven story. Like we all know, the Batman is going to be driven like that. It's going to be greatly emphasized on the characters. Joker was like that. Deadpool, for the most part, has been driven by the character of Deadpool rather than just being, it's like Deadpool. He's going to be breaking the fourth wall all the time. So it's actually more driven about his
like his actual character goals and motivations and desires. Yeah. And not just he happens to do this because this plot reason or this plot reason or this plot reason.
Yeah, Logan was such a great movie because it actually focused on not only on Wolverine's immortality. Immortality. That's a different story there.
So that's why he's keeping That's why he's keeping the professor in that shed.
He's immoral.
And maybe that's why the professor really went mad. He didn't go mad from a power thing. No, he went mad from Wolverine's immorality.
But it is. But Logan is another great example of a character-driven movie that is a special effects. I mean, that is like least to do with special effects. I mean, there are special effects in the movie, but it's kind of like very minute. I mean, there are. You see, Wolverine using his claws and whatnot, but when the characters
and even the behind the scenes, they have like fake prop claws on there too. So it's not just they're just simply holding their fists out and then they're just simply adding in claws. Like, no, they're actually at least holding something to represent it. And then.
Yeah.
So it's not just simply, okay, we'll pretend there's claws here when it's just a fist.
Yeah. But it definitely, but I do agree, like, there are recent Marvel and DC movies where it does feel like it is more emphasized on the special effects rather than the plot, because great example of this is probably well, I don't want to use Wonder Woman as an example, but yeah, Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes, exactly.
The last third of the movie is literally just like a big spectacle of just of what can we do to show Wonder Woman not only doing that, I mean, doing a great spectacle of just a spectacle, and not thinking about, oh, what is the third act going to be?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it does actually falter on that. And then there'll be another DC movie like Shazam, where it's both actually a character-driven movie and also a spectacle-driven movie, where it's just like they both have it both hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Like the spectacle has to serve the story. It can't just be there just for the sake of having the spectacle.
Yeah, and I say this because I liked Wonder Woman 2, and yeah, I liked Woman 2. No,
it's like, which one are we talking about now? Because like, could you say Wonder Woman 2, and I'm like, wait, hold on, are you talking about the first one? Or are you talking about the sequel now?
I liked Wonder Woman 1984. That's another
Okay.
thing. That's the title of the thing. I like 1984, but at the same time, a lot of it does feel like a spectacle of, oh, we'll just show Wonder Woman, the feats of Wonder Woman as a spectacle. And I think hopefully DC has figured out, oh, we should actually keep it more about all these characters and stuff like that, because the Suicide Squad was amazing because
oh my god, yeah.
Well, not only James Gunn's writing, but because they actually it feels like more condensed of, okay, this actually does feel like this is actually something that could actually happen, and stuff like that too.
Well, and also because James Gunn knows how to do character, and he is perfect for ensemble characters because he knows how to give every character their moment, their time to do something, even when it's just like that opening sequence when, spoilers, the first team basically all gets slaughtered.
Yeah.
They still kind of have their moments, so you still kind of, and then of course some fun expectation subversion. Like, there was a great one where it's like Michael Rooker's character, he looks all badass and he's gonna do something badass. He just turns and runs away screaming.
But yeah.
But yeah, it's like, and also with the writing, but also it's like, that's the thing too. It's like, how does it get to that point where it's just simply we're just putting spectacle and special effects? Well, maybe just take another look at the writing, because that movie definitely did have some structural problems with the writing that I feel like if they did take more time to do that, then that's how you then address situations where you're not just creating spectacle just because you need something for that third act.
Yeah. Another great example of this is probably from the Marvel side. Venom Let There Be Carnage, and I heard Venom Let There Be Carnage was more like a black comedy than it was an actual superhero movie, where it didn't feel like, and that was another thing where it's like it feels, and the weird
also
thing
Venom seems to kill more people than Carnage did.
Yeah.
Like, who's the real threat here?
So it definitely feels like Ridley does have a point about superhero movies being like more spectacle driven, especially because they more focus on the spectacle than the storytelling aspect. Mm-hmm. And I do agree. Like some protagonists in both Marvel and DC, they do feel like they are kind of like very one-noted.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they have, even someone like Natasha Romanoff, who I love and dear as a character, I feel like they probably would have done a lot more better if they didn't do like the whole origins thing and they just did as a standalone spy movie where it's just like it's not about her origins of all that stuff. Because if they did the whole origins thing, it's like opening a can of worms. Like when you and then it's like, oh, you watch this movie after what have you, and then suddenly it's like all this stuff. He was like, wait, now what happened to? It's like, and then it's like, well, then what happened to this character? It's like this character should be able to help her now. It's like if you just made a standalone, like if you made Black Widow in a standalone spy movie like akin to James Bond, then maybe it would have made more of a funner ride in exploring her origins. And you could still explore her origins, but
or honestly make it more kind of like Jason Bourne, but then you get rid of all the shaky camera fights. Because like for instance, one of my favorite moments in the Bourne trilogy, because the last one doesn't exist in my opinion, where it like he's at that train station in London, Waterloo Station, and he's basically outmaneuvering the CIA to the point where they have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
He's doing it so effortlessly, and he's like essentially coaching this guy how to do it. I'm like, that is cool. And it's like, that is the kind of cool spy stuff we could have seen Natasha doing. Like, she could have been trying to get information on Taskmaster, and she's having to find a contact, and then she realizes, okay, there are widows here, so I'm going to have to use my spy training to outmaneuver them, and then get the person and information I need to a safe place, so I can get that information from them.
Yeah.
Like, just, like actually just treating the character of Black Widow like the badass spy that she is, and not just simply she is one of the big six of the Marvel heroes.
Yeah.
Because she is still human, and we need to like see that better.
Yeah.
And also just kind of having it be like Taskmaster is the was the person who got badly injured when Natasha was trying to kill some important diplomat or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe instead just have the diplomat be killed and then have Taskmaster take over and have him seem like, you know, someone else is just there as a figurehead. And then Taskmaster can just take over and be like, no, this is about me getting revenge because like you killed my dad.
Yeah.
That'll make the motivations more interesting.
Yeah.
Now, especially because then you can also bring back the family dynamic a little better.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she took her family away. And then also we could probably have this like amazing sacrifice scene where David Harbour's whatever his superhero's character name was,
Red
Guardian, sacrifice himself while fighting Taskmaster.
Yeah.
To give his daughters a chance to, or surrogate daughters, whatever, a chance to escape. Yeah. And then that could lead into the final confrontation.
Yeah. But again, a lot of the writing is just like, especially from what I've seen, because my, you know, family was watching the movie like maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching the movie for a couple of minutes, and it was like, it didn't really feel it felt like a very like a Marvel-ish version of a spy movie without trying to be like a spy movie. It was like more along the lines of them trying to tack on an origins movie inside of a spy movie. Now, another
and also this is just a little nitpick kind of, but it's just like the fact that the method of controlling the widows is through something called pheromones. That just sounds so weird. Like, of all the things you could come up with, like, again, further play into that spy training of like this. That is this intense brainwashing program, and not just simple pheromone mind control.
Yes.
Now, at least that way we can actually understand that, because then it makes the villain even more like the villain, and not just simply pheromones. No, like it's like just essentially torturing them to turn them into weapons.
Now, one of my favorite spy mini years was the show 24, and in the second to last season where he's in New York. Jack Bauer's character is going through a mental crisis, and he's decided to go get revenge. Now, he has to get information. I forgot. Yeah, it was like information on like, I believe like the Russian diplomat or the Russian prime minister or something like that. And so he needs to go get after him, right? So he decides to go after President Logan. Well, actually,
I love that scene.
And Jack Bauer essentially uses his not only military training but also his spy training to go after President Logan. Now, what he does basically is he basically dresses up with heavy body armor, a tactical hockey mask and whatnot, and basically shoots up. Not only shoots up a small tunnel featuring the
like he shoots out the tires on incoming vehicles, so he can essentially block off the tunnel so no one can drive in or out.
Yeah, and not only that, he smokes out some of the I might be misremembering it, but he might just smoke out like the thing. But yeah,
he basically goes for non-lethal incapacitating shots on some of those Secret Service people, and then he like takes out this shotgun to just break the bulletproof window just enough to put in like a tear gas canister.
Yeah. Now imagine Natasha Romanoff doing that to getting some sort of like she needs to go after the Taskmaster, right? So, and
even instead of body armor, using her like her skill set of like, you know, stealthery and stuff like that, where it's like she'll like gets her adversary locked in a tunnel, blocks off any route of escape, turns out the lights, and maybe a kind of be like one of those things where the lights will kind of flash for a couple seconds, then off.
Yeah.
You just kind of see her stealthily making her way around, knocking out people. We hear people getting knocked out in the darkness, and then boom, kidnaps the person she needs to kidnap.
Yeah, just to
like, that would be much more interesting and more in line with the character.
Yeah, but a lot of I think the problem was, especially, I love how this whole conversation evolved from Ridley Scott is not right about millennials, but he's right about superhero stuff, and just goes into a whole thing about the writing of Black Widow.
Thanks, Ridley.
Thanks, Ridley, for being right about this. Anyway,
half right
about that. But yeah, I literally forgot the train of thought. But yeah, it definitely. But yeah, the key to bring it back to the Ridley Scott thing. There are movies, especially from both Marvel and DC fronts, that do focus on the spectacle and don't really focus on a more character-driven script-wise. But there are Marvel and DC movies that always flip that around and actually focus on a very good character-driven script while doing while focusing on the spectacle. Again, like Captain Marvel a couple of years ago, I will say that Captain Marvel could have use a good once over in terms of the story, all that stuff, especially connecting to other movies from the past and stuff like that too.
Yeah, it was like everyone was interesting except for the main character herself, because they were trying to do two different stories with her instead of having one consecutive story.
Yeah, and but again, that's another problem, is that how do you make a character like?
Also, because Captain Marvel's character has never been that interesting too. Like every comic run of a character is inherently the same kind of character that isn't actually that interesting.
Yeah, and all right, yeah, it definitely feels like Ridley Scott's onto something, but he's half right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He just, yeah.
Sorry, and to quickly kind of actually, because it's reminding me of something. So like a great example of one person knowing how to use spectacle and another just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. Oddly enough, look at the Justice League movie, where you have the one version by Joss Whedon, where the characters feel butchered versions of themselves, and it does feel more spectacle driven. Whereas I would argue with Zack Snyder's version, we actually get, well, because it's also like 4 hours long, but we actually do get to know more of the characters. It actually does feel like it's more driven by the characters' actions and not just spectacle for the sake of spectacle. There's some cool spectacle, but it feels like there's something where each character, as a character, actually can contribute. Like you can't take any one of them out. Like if you take any one of them out, then you got a different movie. Whereas I feel like with Joss Whedon's, you could essentially take one character out and fundamentally nothing much would actually change.
Yeah, and they did take out one character from that movie out, and really, honestly, you could still have taken the same character out from the Snyder Cut, and nothing really would have made any more sense. And I do love that character that they put in the Snyder Cut, but at the same time, that character really didn't add up to a lot of anything. And
are we talking about Martian Manhunter?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I think the whole point of his character was just to tease, future stuff. But I mean, for the main 6 that we saw, because that's the one thing. It's like literally just watching it with watching Joss Whedon's version. It seems like all they have to do, pull the boxes apart. Okay, get Superman to do it. You don't need Cyborg to do it. Yeah. Because so yeah, it's that point. It's like there's some who definitely know how to only do spectacle really and don't clearly understand the characters enough, and then there's some who do actually know how to understand the characters at least enough to make an interesting movie and know how to mix in with spectacle.
And I think to end this episode on a good note, or a funny note, or a how the hell are they still around note. So you sent me a couple of days ago South Park showing a quick promotional video of the next special, which will be on Paramount Plus, because now they're doing a Paramount Plus only specials. So like it's their own type of Paramount
their exclusive
originals. But it's basically the South Park kids now grown up now like a few years older, like say in like maybe 20 years older, I think, or something like that, because yeah, like maybe 20 or 30 years old. I forgot. It doesn't. They
They
obviously
look like they're in their 20s or 30s for sure. I would say how they're modeled
but
wise.
one for a what if or yeah, for a what if episode, it actually does look interesting, especially since it does feel like and it's called, I think it's like I think they call it post COVID or COVID kids or something like that,
Yeah.
or COVID South Park or something like that. But and I love the idea of them doing like a what if type of episode where it's just like, oh, here are the kids like 20 years from now, are they still the same kids like as they were 20 years before? And it's like, and as someone who really does like watch South Park on and off, or off and on, I should say, yeah, off and on.
Yeah.
And I really like literally the last season I watched fully was the Remember Berries season, and then I was like, you know what, I'm done with South Park for a while. I'm just done.
Yeah, that was a rough patch.
Yeah.
It got better. Like they returned to form while still being able to kind of do episodic style episodes.
Yeah, and then I was like, I think that was also the same season that not Randy, Kyle's father was also the.
Oh my God,
hack,
yeah, when he was that like internet troll, and he's just like,
troll.
Yeah.
Then
and his excuse the whole time is, I just did it for the lulz.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that they hit a rough patch with that one, but I will say, because I watched some of the later ones, they pulled themselves out of that rough patch.
Yeah,
like they're still able. They still have maintained being able to do the episodic kind of stuff like they wanted to, but they knew how to streamline it better.
Oh yeah, I think it's just because they tried doing the whole season like long arc of all that stuff, and then sounds like season long arcs or television type of shows, whereas like like dramas and stuff like that too, not cartoons or comedy shows. And I'm not saying that comedy shows cannot have a season long arc. There are a lot of comedy shows that do have an arc, but it's kind of like in the background, or it gets like kind of like comes and goes. Like
a great example, the fact that Kenny dies pretty much almost every episode, and he comes back to life in the next episode, and they actually address that in that like superhero trilogy episode thing, where when he's dressed as Mysterion, he literally tells everyone, "I cannot die. Even when I do, I just come back to life the next day, and everyone forgets what happened."
Yeah. And it's great, and then they actually do show what happens, and it's like one of those things. And I don't want to say it because, if I'm putting this on YouTube, I might get demonetized or suppressed. So I'm not telling you what happened. Oh, I could curse and whatnot, but telling how Kenny comes back, oh hell no, I'm not talking about that. Anyway,
no, I can tell you right now, it's because
no.
Okay. I think we're good. I'm just we're not going to talk about a certain show that goes south of a certain park.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, I even if this is a one if episode, it does actually look fun because it does look like they had the same Man Trey had the same feel of what they're doing with like realistically, how would the kids of South Park be 20 years from now, especially after a tragic well, not only a tragic event but also a
separation actually too.
A separation event like COVID. So yeah.
Well, not just COVID, also because like in the COVID special that they did a while back for the vaccines, or the vaccine special thing, basically all of them essentially kind of separate like parents, and Kenny is like representative of their child in a sense, where it's like they all will only hang out on certain days with Kenny.
Oh yeah.
When they all can't be around with each other. So it's gonna be interesting to see if they kind of pick up that storyline from that point of view.
Oh yeah.
Like if they're gonna keep that sort of continuity, or just a totally random altogether thing.
I literally forgot about the separation thing with Kenny and how they're treating Kenny like the baby of the bunch, and
he is so unaware of it the whole time too. Like he has no idea what's going on. Like I felt so bad for Kenny watching that.
And yeah, it definitely feels like South Park, it does have its it does have its way downs and its big ups, but yeah, it does feel like for the past couple of years, it does feel like it's been on its way up, especially because of Trump being in office and how Mr. Garrison somehow became president. Somehow, I don't even know what that one. But
I mean, again, it's like, how did Trump become president?
Yeah.
Like all Mr. Garrison did was just be their Trump in place of Trump.
Yeah,
because he already kind of does the way his character is already kind of represents who Trump is anyway, so it already makes sense to kind of have him as that role.
Yeah. Again, that's
also it's so in character of him to like to be like, okay, I'm gay. Oh, actually, no, I'm gonna become a woman. No, I'm gonna change back. No, you know what? I'm just gonna go right for president.
Yeah,
again, he just does whatever the hell he wants.
Mr. Garrison is like a weird character trying to pin down and whatnot. So, and that's another thing. Apparently, in the trailer, it looks like Cal has picked up Mr. Garrison's job. So I would love to see a scene where it's like Mr. Garrison and Cal have that conversation of him in the same office, whereas like now Cal is the Mr. Garrison person in charge, and Mr. Garrison's like this guy who's just coming to visit the school or whatnot, or he's now the principal.
Oh my god, like that would be what happens. Like it would definitely be he becomes the principal. Like I wouldn't be surprised one bit.
Yeah. All right, so I know we're kind of like running along with this episode, but yeah, it was a pretty slow week, but it was kind of like interesting to say the least. But with the events of story and all that, and also it's Thanksgiving too, and so
this is our Thanksgiving treat to y'all.
Yeah, we're giving thanks to you with an extra long episode to listen and watch and have this on the background of while you're all eating dinner and whatnot. So, eating your turkeys and watching your Hawkeyes or Cowboy Bebops and whatnot.
And you know what? As one last Thanksgiving treat, I'm going to give them the inside scoop on how